Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar about Naviate Pipe Tools. It's me, Thomas, and Caroline is going to be with you today. The structure today is that Caroline is going to go through some of the minor features in Naviate Pipe. It's a big toolbox, and after that, I am going to show some news that's coming and maybe get some input from you what you think about that kind of tools. I'm going to be showing creating arced pipes, fillet pipes, creating pipe bends using gravity pipes, so sort of emulating pressure pipes. So we'll be back about that one, but I'll hand over to you, Caroline, to do today's session.
Thank you. So, as Thomas said, I'm going to show you stuff that is already in Naviate today. So this is stuff that's been, for some of them, have been around for quite a while, but are still useful, and we think that we need to sort of go through even our existing tools and see how they work in a context. So I'm going to try to do sort of a design process today, go through quite a lot. I'm going to do a few mistakes as well in my file to sort of see how we can solve them and stuff that usually happens when you do pipe design. And so in this case, it's the production version of Naviate, which means it's 24.2, which is out, and that will be the same as 23.12, I want to say. So you can access them on both versions if you want to. But I'm going to start by creating a couple of networks. So in my file right now, it's going to be a metric file. I'm going to work with a UK set, but you're going to recognize everything. It makes sense to use it, to have this in any, you can use these functions in any version, of course. So let's just start. What I have right now, I have a couple of surfaces. You can see my 3D model on the right side. And I also have a couple of polylines here that are drawn on 0, so they don't have any elevation. So the first function that we have is, or the first theme that we have is about creating networks. So we have basically two ways in Naviate of creating networks. The first thing is to create pipe network from multiple polylines. So we can select both of these polylines, and then I can select pipe networks from them. So I'm just going to select them, and I'm going to hit enter, and we come into the dialog. In here, we get to set the name. So what this function can do that Civil can't is we can also add to networks. So if I have existing networks here, I can add to them. So I can append to my networks if I need to. I'm going to select a parts list. This is similar as with Civil, but we can also create structures. So we create structures in every node. So the question here is, what do you want to have at the beginning of every node of the line, and what do you want to have in the middle? That's why we have two different structures here. So I'm going to have a concentric structure, and then I'm going to have null structures in the middle. I'm going to come back to the null structures and why I don't really like them, but I'm going to show you what's happening with them and show you what's happening with them sometimes. I'm going to have a reference surface. So we need to select the reference surface here. Something that sometimes happens, though, is that you forget it. Very common, or you have other surfaces that you want to select. So if you miss that one, I'm going to show you how to solve it afterwards. But in this dialog, we can also erase the existing polyline, and we can use the vertex elevation, which it means it's going to be placed along this line, or we can untick that one, and then we're going to use the surface. So those are the two elevation options that we have here. Use the surface or use the vertex elevation. I'm actually going to show you an image here because we have been working with this one. So in the next version that we're coming out, I'm just going to show you how it looks in the next version. It's very similar, but what we've added here is we can add spanning labels, and we can also reverse flow direction, because this is something that we're going to see sort of return in these functionalities where we tend to always think in one direction, But we sort of realized that we need to be able to think in both directions. So a lot of our functions are being updated so that we can sort of handle both directions of our pipe flow direction. So this is something that will be coming in the next version of this one. Spanning labels will also be interesting, and I'm going to return to those later on in the show. So I'm just going to hit OK. Now, what happens when I don't select the surface? My pipe's going to be graded as 0, which we can see here in our 3D model. It's always good to sort of keep track of your pipes, because in the plan view, you don't really see this. But if you keep a 3D view, or if you have a profile view or stuff like that, then you can easily see that something is wrong. Or I can select my pipe. The easiest way is to move my mouse over one of the edges, and then I can see the elevation down at the bottom of my screen, my coordinate screen. So you can check this in various ways, but I would recommend to sort of keep a track of it. But in this case, I actually have two problems with my network. The network don't have a reference surface, and they are created in a wrong position. So for the reference surface, we have the function up here called set surface or set reference surface. So this one sets a reference surface for my entire network. So if I use this one, select one of my pipes in the network, hit enter, and then I can select networks, as in do this change for the entire network, or networks. So if I select multiples, I can set it for multiple networks. Going to select my surface. In this case, I'm even going to use the road. So my road top surface is going to be my reference surface. And then I'm just going to hit OK. And what we'll see in the 3D view is that the structures will move up. They will be connected to my surface directly, but the pipes won't move. So the pipe's elevation won't change. Now, the easiest way to sort of get everything up, to sort of get them up to the surface, in my view, is to use set pipe cover. If you know the elevations, you can work with a lot of others, but I always like to sort of get them almost correctly and then start modifying them. And set pipe cover for me just moves everything up so I can actually see it in their sort of natural environment, and then I can work from there. So set pipe cover is my solution for sort of getting everything up. Also because then I can select one pipe. I don't really need to worry about elevations, which I'm going to do in just a second, but then I can select the entire network. So I don't need to find everything. I don't need to check everything. I can just say entire network, place everything 1.2 below the surface, and everything is lifted. So quick way of getting your pipes and structures up to sort of see what's happening with them. But this is sort of getting everything up. But after that, you sort of start realize that you need to sort of pay attention to your elevations. We have two elevations functionalities. I'm actually not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to show, I've shown you set pipe cover. I'm going to show you modify single pipe, and I'm going to show you modify multiple pipes. Now, the reason why I set modify single pipe is because if I now select my pipe here, I can see straight away the elevations for that one. You'll notice that we apply labels. You can see the elevations in the dialog, but we also apply labels on the pipes, and they will show you. But in this case, the pipes are, or this rather the scale is a bit too big. So I'm going to change the scale here. Notice that my dialog is up already, so it can stay up. I don't really need to close it. But what happens now when I change the scale is that my structures are reduced in scale, but my pipes don't really follow along. This is the sort of graphic things that some have all the time and some never have. In my case right now, I get this all the time, that the pipes don't really update. They should attach to the side of it. And it doesn't really matter if I do a regen, which we're used to when it comes to AutoCAD. I need to update these in another way. And for updating pipes, or rather for updating structures, the solution that we've sort of realized is the most secure one is to actually move the structure just a little bit. But if you have a lot of structures, this takes a lot of time. So we have the function called nudge structure. Nudge structure is one of these that will sort of magically solve weird things. So if your pipe doesn't look right, if your structure doesn't look like, if you can't see the 3D model, if you can't see it in profile, if you get weird sort of graphical issues, try nudge. Because what nudge actually does is if I select one of my structures here, I'm going to say network, and I'm going to just hit enter. It means it's going to move the structure, in this case, 3 millimeters. And that's enough to sort of trigger the update to make sure that everything looks right. And it just goes through the entire network and just triggers the update. If you start using this multiple times, which sometimes is necessary if you sort of get annoyed with this one, you can start using nudge and do it minus as well. So you can sort of move them back and forth. Just so you know that you can enter your value that you want to move. Let's come back to my modify pipe. So if I want to set an elevation here, I can set my elevation. Now the trick about getting this one to work good is to hit enter when you change it. As soon as I hit enter, when I enter a value and then hit enter on my command on my keyboard, then I update the change. So you can see that it's updating directly. Now I want to lock the drops. I want to say that to my next one, I actually want this to be 0. So as soon as I hit enter there, you see that the change moves along there. If I want to go to my next pipe, I use the arrow forward and I can move to that one. And I can say that, well, I want to lock the drop from previous. I don't want to change that one. Then I want to say my slope should be 1. Then it's updating and moving forward. So if you want to change sort of pipe by pipe, then you can use modify single pipe and you can see everything. As soon as I do close, it's updating my pipes. But you can also use modify multiple pipes. And this one is more for sort of setting elevation on across the entire thing. So if I select my first pipe, I select my second pipe. This one is also one of these that we can now select backwards. So if I do close and I do it again, I select my top pipe or backwards, depending on what you think is backwards and forwards, of course. But from my point of view, this is backwards. It's actually going to tell me that I've selected them in the reverse because we tend to sort of calculate down. I'm not going to say downhill, but downslope. So I can reverse the selection. And then I can set the pipe slope. Let's do 0.1. And then I do apply, and the pipes are changed all the way through. So depending on how you want to work this, you can do it like this. You can keep this sort of being a plan and 3D view, but from my point of view, it's always easier to have a profile view. And I'm actually just going to save this file. So I'm going to save it over my demo file there. You can create a profile network from your network or profile view from network parts, which you want to use up here. But in this case, I actually want to do multiples. And I have already alignments. I have my road alignments here, which I'm going to use. So in this case, I have 2 alignments, but I don't have any profile views. So we have a function. I'm actually going to go to a plan view here. So now I'm going to have a profile view instead. And this one is on the pipe later, I think. But for right now, it's on the road called create profile views from multiple alignments. And this is a way of quickly creating profile views, as it says, from multiple alignments. So inside this dialog, I have my alignments. And I can say, I know I have 2 surfaces. I'm going to use 2 rows. The first one is going to be my EG, my existing ground. And the second one is going to be my road top. My EG is going to be existing ground style, and road top is going to be design profile. I'm going to create the profile views. I'm not going to create a finished ground profile. This is if you want to do a design profile inside the whole thing. But in my case, I just want to do profile and profile views. Click OK. And then I'm going to place my profile views. It's a very quick way of getting all your profile views up if you already have the alignments. So you still need to create the alignments, but once you have those, you can create the profile views directly from it. But I don't get any pipe networks. Now, you can project your pipe networks in multiple ways to this. My favorite way, just because it looks a bit cool, if you know your lasso. I find very few reasons to use the lasso when it comes to selecting, but in this case, it's actually kind of fun because if you use a lasso, not the green one, the blue one, and you make sure that you just get the selection you're after, so I only do my pipes, then I can do draw parts in profile. Because if I select the entire network, it's going to project the whole thing. So if I can manage to do a lasso like this, then I can use draw parts in profile and get that in there. But I actually have a better way that's not so finicky, which the lasso can be. And that's to use spanning labels. So spanning labels is something that Civil does. So we have the function over here, but it's actually a Civil functionality. Spanning labels places a label on a span of pipes, a stretch of pipes. So I'm going to do a spanning label plan, and I'm going to say from that one to that one. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to place the label there. So now I get my spanning label. I'm going to stretch it out so we can see where it is. And that's going to be my entire position there. I'm going to use the same thing again. And I'm going to do from that one to that one, enter, and I'm going to place it here. Now I have my spanning label for that one. So I have 2 spanning labels for my 2 spans that I'm going to use. Now the idea behind this is that we have a lot of functionalities in Naviate where we can use the spanning label to get a selection. So you don't need to sort of pick the first and last, or you need to select everything. You can use a spanning label instead to get the selection. And in this case, we actually have draw parsing profile view here, but you still need to select everything here. So it doesn't really work if I select the spanning pipe label because it needs to be pipes. But we have a function over here called select spanning pipes because Civil doesn't do this for some reason. So select spanning pipes, select the label, I get the pipes and structures selected, and then I can use draw parsing profile. And I get just the pipes and structures that I want. Doing the same thing here, select objects, select the label, and then draw parsing profile. So I get them in there. So that's one way of using spanning labels. We are working to use more for spanning labels, to actually use them as branches. So if you sort of feel like, okay, this is something that is interesting, it could be good to sort of get used to them because we will implement a lot more when it comes to the spanning labels in the next version as well that we're going to use. So those are the profile views. So as I said, I'm not really going to go through the elevation tools because I know that we've gone through them. And I'm going to focus on sort of the other tools that we have over here. But one thing that I want to show you inside elevation or inside profile is create structure in profile. So if you have a need to sort of get the structure in, this is something that we have had methods with before, but we just made it so much easier. So create structure in profile, select the pipe you want to add to, and then just place where do I want the structure to be. And then I get to select the structure from that part list. So in my case right now, I'm going to have a null structure, click OK, it's placing it in there. And so now I'm sort of wondering, okay, where am I in my plan? We have a function for that as well. Highlight profile part in plan. Select my pipe, and that one is selected over here. I even have a zoom. So if I'm far away, it can zoom to that object. So sometimes it's a bit confusing to know where you sort of are in relation, then selecting the objects and moving back and forth. The other tool, that's a Civil tool, is to select the pipe, the profile view, and then use station tracker to make sure that you get that in so you know where you are. Depending on your computer, this might be slow. So I'm actually going to turn it off because I noticed that I have a lot of graphic incidents here. So I'm not gonna chance it. So let's create structure in profile. It becomes a normal structure, just a way of placing it how I want this to be. So I'm going to do offset pipe network. Another way of offsetting or creating pipe networks. So offset pipe network has been around for quite a while. We can select the pipe span that we're using. And same thing here. It's important that you select the right direction. So if I do this the other way around, you will notice, as you probably have if you used our tool before, that you get this sort of mishmash of red lines. In the next version, we fixed this. So it's actually going to tell me, or rather I can reverse it myself. So if I get this, I just hit reverse and it's flipping it around. So we've sort of gotten the structure to work for that one. But in this case, right now, it's important that I select in the right direction. I want this red line to be, that's the wrong direction. So let's do it the right way. That one to that one. And I get my pipes like that. And then I can select my offset settings. So how far away do I want to create my pipes? So that's the idea here. And the distance is calculated from the outsides of the pipes, or rather I can calculate. I can also do it center, which is why I have center here. But more usually we have it from the outside, so from the right side there. I can select the other pipe that I'm going to create. So I'm going to create a sanitary, and then it's going to add to that. So I have a preview so I can see which direction I'm going. Now, important thing to sort of remember, or rather I tend to explain, I don't think about it too much, because the idea here is that the line that we're creating will still be created in the pipe center, but the distances that we have are measured from the outside. So it will be correct. So don't think about it, but the line will be created at the center, and that's to make sure that we can update it correctly. But the distances are calculated from the outside. So create pipe network, click OK. And then I come back to the first one that I had, which is create pipe from multiple polylines. So in this case, I'm going to do a sanitary, and then I'm going to do a road top. In this case, I'm going to use the virtualization. So it's inputting a lot of stuff here. I'm actually going to do null structures for intermediate. Click OK. And then it's creating my pipe network. And as I said, it's creating a line as well. So I have a 3D polyline here, which is sort of my reference point. So if I move my structures, if I grab my storm in this case, we can see that it's actually moving the line along. And that's because I want to maybe return my reference network to that line. So I have this as a reference point. Now, I wanted to sort of, I have two ways of moving, if I sort of want to move both of these structures. We have a civil way and we have a Naviate way. I'm not actually sure which one is the easier. So I'm going to show you both, and you can select. So because if I want to move these sort of as a combination, I can select both structures. I can then hold down my Shift key and click on them again, so they become red. And after that, I can click on the structure and move them as a group. So select them, hold down Shift, click on them, move them. So it's multiple steps to get them to move. Now, the Naviate way is to use nudge, because inside nudge, we have the option of using multiple structures. So when I start nudge, I can use multiple structures. And then I can select my structures, hit enter to continue, and then I can use the pick option. Now, pick option means that I'm going to pick where I'm going to start from and where it's going to end up. And then it moves them. So those are the two versions or the two functionalities that I have for moving structures and making sure my pipes come along with it. That's the issue with it. So, but I would say nudge is the one that sort of, it makes sense to have. The other one where we select them, you sort of need to remember the order of it to do it like that. But if you move them, you can update the copied network. So we have this reference line here, and we can update the copied network. We update that by update network by 3D poly. Gonna select my line. The line remembers what it created. So I can say use stored pipes, which means that I'm just don't need to select which one to move. Just gonna hit OK, and it's updated my pipes. Now, you'll notice that my structures disappeared. Null structures is a weird type of structure. We have issues with it. Both Naviate and Civil have issues with it, that they tend to sort of disappear sometimes. And in this case, some of them did, but not all of them, probably because it didn't move everything. We have a way in Naviate to do a network recover, because you can't really do a lot of functionalities, both for Civil and Naviate, if you don't keep the structure, which is pipe structure, pipe structure, pipe structure. So you need to make sure that you maintain that. If you drop that, which I've done here, right now it's going to look fine, but sooner or later, it's going to mess me up. So I need to be aware that I need to keep these here. So network recover is an easy way of just selecting one of my pipes. And then, so it's going to basically recover my network. So I'm just going to hit enter here. And what it's actually going to do is going to recreate my null structures, because it's looking at two pipes, and it knows that if two pipes connect like this, it should be a null structure in between, or rather it should be a structure. So that's what it's going to do. So that's a way of recreating the networks in this case. So just be aware, just keep track and know what you're doing with this case. But the null structures are sometimes a bit finicky or a bit strange, I would say. But then I also had an option to show you the network recover, so that's good. I'm actually going to bring in a couple of other networks here. So one of the things that they updated in 24 is that I have data shortcuts, but it's not remembering my data shortcuts. And I do think that I read something about this, that it's actually if I close my program, it's not remembering the search path that I had last, which it did before, which sometimes took a lot of time to open. So right now it's emptying the name, so I never have my shortcuts present when I open the next one, which is good, I think, in the long run, but it means that I need to sort of activate my project. So I want to show you the Naviate function for project. Because as soon as you've sort of created a data shortcut on your computer, then we keep track of that. Well, Civil keeps track of that, and we can show you what Civil is keeping track of. So I have my data shortcut project here that I've created, and as soon as I click on that one and click OK, so I don't need to go to that path because that's what Civil is going to make you do. So I just hit OK, and then it's activating my project down here. So project is something that will be interesting if you use 24. I think it was not updated in 24. I'm not sure if they implemented 23 yet. But I'm going to insert my pipe networks here. So I have a folder here. It's two networks. Just going to grab the entire folder, create reference, and then I get my pipes in here. Because if you have multiple pipe networks, which is pretty common to have, first thing I want to do is I want to create an interference check. And I want to create them between all of my networks. So we have a quick tool of just creating it between everything in your drawing. So if I click on the interference check up here, I can just say check all, and it's going to create them because it needs to check them 1, 2 at a time. So you sort of check them against each other. So I'm just going to say check all, and it's going to create the required interference checks. And it's going to show me where they are as well. The interference checks are Civil 3D interference checks. So they live in your tool space. And you can see if I have a black spot there, it means that I have an interference. If I select that one, I can do right click and I can do zoom to, and it's going to show me where I have the interference. And then, so it's not going to solve it for me, it's just going to tell me where I want this to be so I can sort of move my structures around in this case. So that's a design question. So for instance, modify elevation would be a solution for that one. But just to create all the interferences, and once you've created them, notice that even if there's no interference right now, it still created the check, which means that if you do design changes, you can rerun an interference check even if it doesn't contain anything. It just means it's going to check between the networks. So it's always good to sort of create everything, even if you know that right now they don't interfere, but they might down the road. The other thing that I wanted to show you when I now have multiple networks is the multi-label. Because we have a way of placing labels, Civil 3D labels, along multiple pipes. This is something that we have actually two ways, two different label types. One that's the requirement for the Swedish market, one that is a requirement for the Finnish market. So we have multi-label here, and we have a flag, so a flag object. And if I do fence, you're going to see what's going to happen. So the fence means I'm just going to draw a line across the pipes that I want to have in my flag. And it's actually turning the UCS so you can make sure that it's perpendicular. And then I'm just going to place the label. And once I place the label, it's actually not finished placing it until I sort of hit enter. So I can move it around a little bit until I have it where I want it to be. Then I hit enter. Then I can do it the other way around. It matters which order you place, you grab your pipes in. So if I do, let's see which one I did. Did I do from the top down? No. If I do from the top down, you'll notice that it's actually angled towards the first pipe. And this means that the first label will be the one that is straight. So what this means is that if your pipes are not entirely not perpendicular, straight along each other, trying to figure out the name for it, the labels will sort of
parallel.
Parallel, thank you. So if they're not exactly parallel, they will sort of diverge from each other. And that's how Civil labels work. Either they are parallel to your pipe or they can be oriented to the view. So an option here, if I don't like this one, is to instead do the label, which is a flag view. So the flag view will mean even if I do from the top down and then I place it, it's oriented to the view and it will be correct. The benefit of having these pipes anyway is that if I change anything, if I, for instance, use swap parts, where I can swap multiple parts to a new dimension, then everything will still be updated. So that's the benefit of the information always correct, but you sort of need to make sure that you have your labels placed in the correct place. So I'm just going to swap multiple parts on my network, and we can see that my 400 there will actually, where did it go? The dialog disappeared for me. Swap multiple parts dialog. Well, it doesn't help if I do it on a data shortcutted pipe network. That is not going to work. So I just need to find the network that is not a data shortcut. There we go. So if I update these ones and say they should be 450 instead, and then we're going to see the label increases. So that's the benefit of them. Now, the other way of doing these labels, this is a Swedish one where we place them like this, but we also have one for the Finnish, and that is, if I do the same functionality, is where we have the structure. So I'm going to see if I have flag structure. So we can also place a label on the structure, which basically means placing a label on all pipes entering that structure. So if you have a situation where you want to have a label on each pipe, this is one way of doing it. So structure, I'm going to select the structure. I'm going to select the one, my D here, and then I'm going to pick the label position. And what it's actually doing, it's picking up all the structures, all the pipes that are entering that structure, and it's placing a label on each. And we can move these as well. And they are Civil 3D labels, so they will also be affected by the style or the scale if you want to. So that is the multi-label. So a way of placing labels for multiple pipes is the idea here to do that. Final thing that I wanted to say, because I think I have about 5 minutes before I'm going to let Thomas in, is I'm going to talk a little bit about structure to edge. So I'm actually going to move this one, my storm. No, I think I'm going to take my D here. I'm going to move this one a little bit out so I can see what's happening with it. So we have 3 pipes inside this one. So we have a way of, let's see where this one is in profile first. So you remember what I said, highlight profile part. I can also say highlight plan part in profile. So select my structure, and there is my structure in my profile view. So we can, in Civil 3D, move pipes to the edge of the structure while they're still connected. That is the important part here. So we can move them to the edge of the structure, which means that we can shorten them so they only enter the structure, so we can get the length so that the 3D view will be actually correct. But it also means that we can enter the structure not into the center, so we can enter it outside. Notice that it's not entering it perpendicularly, so that you sort of keep track of on your own. But we can move these around. Now, the downside of this is that as soon as I move my structure, it's going to revert back to center. So it's just going to revert back and nothing, and you need to sort of make this change again. So we added a function for storing the pipe offsets. So store pipe offsets, I'm going to store them. I'm going to store them on parts, and I'm going to select my pipes that I want to store it for, because we save this on the pipes. So enter, and now I have stored that. So if I now move my structure, we can see that the pipes return to center. And now I can use restore. I can use the quick function here for restore, or I can run the function again. I'm just going to do restore, and it's going to move the pipes back to the position that I've stored it in. So this is for sort of if you want to have non-centric connections, if you want to have shorter pipes, you want them to end at the edge. And you will see also that if we end them at the edge like this, then they will also be that way in the profile. So you will actually get a line in the profile band for that pipe end. So that is also something that we've had as a question sometimes, to sort of get these lines in here, so we don't just get the center of the structure. So you can store this information as well. Another way where we want to have the restore is if you do corridors, you need to have the pipes to the center of the structure, otherwise your corridor will be a little bit weird as well. So we can store them, we can restore them, and we can also reset. So if I do store pipe offsets, I can also do reset, which will reset it without moving the structure. So I'm just going to do reset. I'm not going to remove the stored information. I'm just going to say all, and then it's going to reset it. And I can always restore to come back to the position. So that's the function that we added this fall, actually, to get that in here. I think that was my final thing, Thomas. Are you ready to show your things? If there are any questions about this, the recording will be here, will be available to you on naviate.com. Everyone that signed up will also get an email with that recording. Usually it takes a week or two to sort of get that product produced correctly, but that will come out to you as soon as it's done. Now I'm ready for you, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you. Great show there. Okay. So I have some news to show. Could you make me presenter, or
yes.
do I?
Yes. No, I just realized. No. So now you should be able to share.
Now I'm able to. Thanks. Okay. So I'll be touching some new features that you do not have even if you installed the latest version. So I'm running on beta, so anything can happen right now. And what I'm gonna show is a new feature and maybe an old feature. If you have a late version installed, maybe you have our first version of the pipe bend command. So I'm going to try to explain this. So we're looking at a way to work with bends and well, pressurized pipes, but using gravity pipes. So some of our customers have requested this, so we're in a sandbox or mudbox environment here. The first thing I want to show is the pipe fillet command. No, actually, I think I'll start with the curved pipe. So just some time ago, we added the curved pipe feature. And curved pipe is taking a straight pipe and making it curved. And it's just making it a curved pipe. And then you can use the drag option if my computer gets back. Yeah. So you can then drag the arc. So it's just making it a 3-point arced pipe. And I think in the version that's out now, we have two commands, one to straighten the pipes. Now it's the same command to straighten the pipe and curve the pipe. So that one is just to convert a pipe to a curved pipe. Our new command we're working on here is to fillet, to create a fillet. So I have two pipes here. Maybe I select them there. So you see that one, and the second pipe is, come on, it's being terribly slow when I have go to webinar on. So you see there are my two pipes. And if I now use my pipe fillet command, I select the two pipes. And did I play with that one now? Yeah, sorry. I think I need to, I prepared a demo and I did this in reversed order now. So let's shift that one because I was playing with them back and forth. Hopefully it works now. First pipe, second pipe. Yeah, so they need to be in the same flow direction. And now you can see it's creating a pipe fillet, so an arc pipe between those two, and it's tangent. It's a tangent between the two pipes. And I can now play with a few different settings. I have the radius now. It says accept or change radius. So I can enter another value if I want it to be 2 or 6 or so. I can play with it. I can also use length, which means I instead enter the length of the resulting pipe. So if I want it to be 12 meters, I enter 12. Now the arced pipe will be 12 meters long. The third version or option we have is using factor. And the factor is more kind of a bend, because normally a bend, a short bend, is either 1.5 or 2.5 radius length compared to the diameter of the pipe. So normally that's a normal standard. 1.5 to 2.5 of the diameter will be the arc for the bend. So it means it's quite small, as you see, because I have like maybe 300 or 500 pipe here, and 1.5 as my factor. So the factor is multiplied, which means we get different radius on different dimensions, pipe dimensions. Just change that one to 2.5. So that's one option. Right now we are only supporting connected pipes, so they need to be connected. And please let us know if you have comments. You're free to write now if you think this is a good feature, or if you would like to see other things in that feature. The next thing I will show here is the pipe bend command, and yes, that's why I'm going to reverse that pipe to go in the other direction and start my pipe bend. So the pipe bend command will allow me to create pipes as bends from my original pipe. We kind of see that we stack next object, the bend and next pipe after each other along that pipe. And this is kind of the compass that is in pressure pipes, but we have it here. So we have the ability to switch the direction. And actually, I'll turn on my auto pan, and it's gonna automatically follow the construction I make. And I also have ability now to add bend in here. So you see we have the fixed length and angle. We can also pick if we want to pick a certain angle. If I do select pick, you can see that it actually stays on the set angle. So and this can be set if you don't want to work with our 15 degrees. It depends. You can actually set it up using this button here. So we follow that tracking thing there. And if I pick a point there, I get that length I picked and the angle I picked. I didn't take the exact angle, but there. And I can change the value on my pipe. But also, when using this, I can also turn on bends. And when I turn the length on, you see I'm creating two short pipes. And if I want to have now also an arc, I can add that one in there and set a radius of 0.5. So now it's going to create multiple objects. Let's actually start without the arc, maybe a length of 5 meters. And when I click, if I click create, it's going to create it and move on to or exit the dialog. If I click next, it's going to create the object I created and move on to next. The zoom is not really working as intended. It should actually stay, so we're working on that one. So now I can shift and maybe go 90 degrees to the other side like this. And now let's add an arc into that one, 0.5 there. We can see that one being added. Also notice that I have ability to lock lengths. And if I do that, you will see that the length of the in and out is now, if I don't have lock length, I have 1 meter there and then 1 meter there and then the fillet in between. If I lock the length, it's going to be 1 meter there and then an arc, and then so we have both options. You can see in my right view here I'm having 3D, so we can actually see the slope. To explain what this dialog actually does, it says pipe in length and pipe in slope. So that's the previous pipe, this pipe here now, or the first pipe I selected. So what's being created is below here, but I can also edit the incoming or my start pipe length and slope, and then I can change the outgoing slope. So I can, for instance, set a negative slope there, and then you notice that this line is pointing upwards. This is facing forward, so I can see the slope. You see it's pointing upwards. I change that one, P, it goes downwards. Okay, and if I click create, it creates the objects and closes the dialog. Now I have a lot of labels in there, I don't want them there. So what happened here was that we created these pipes there. So this allows us to kind of simulate working with pressure pipes. And if I go into Object Viewer, you will see that these are actually three pipes, you know. We also investigate an option where we, instead of creating these pipes, we create solids. And I see I have a question here now about is there a structure between the two pipes? Yes, in this way here now, we create the same structure as the original structure in between the pipes. Which means that in this method here, we can actually run the commands that Caroline showed, offset pipe, we can run pipe elevation tools and so on these pipes, so we can change the slope afterwards. However, we're creating multiple pipes, so you know there's a limitation where they say for good performance you need you shouldn't exceed 500 pipes or structures in the same drawing file, which means that in this method we will decrease the number of actual pipes you can create. And that's why we're also investigating if we can create solids to do this instead. And yes, we have a method to connect the pipes anyhow. So interesting to hear your views here, and we're also interested to hear if we have anyone in the audience or people in the audience that might want to contribute and let us know how we could proceed with this feature. Yeah, so go ahead and ask questions if you want to. Also, we can say that we actually move structures, so we can actually insert objects, which actually means, I think, bear with me, this is a beta. If I take the same pipe again that I started with, you can see that I actually can create objects from that one. I'll try this one now, and I'll do select similar to remove that one. And I think that I now actually ran into one of the strange things that Civil has. So this is not an error. I think you would consider it being an error from us, but I think that this is actually an error in Civil. Yeah, because it is correct, but sometimes Civil displays a curved pipe with the wrong direction of these arc. Not much we can do about that one, I'm afraid, unless we do solids. It's going to work. Okay, so I have some questions now. If you don't have any more questions in the audience, so I'm gonna do the poll. Did it come out, Caroline, or?
It did, and pressure pipes is the type of pipes in civil that we are referring to.
Yeah, good, thanks. So I don't see the view anymore. I wonder where it went. It hid somewhere between. Okay. Yeah, most of people are saying no. And you have, I should have had multiple options in this one. I wanted to hear if it doesn't work well or if you lack pipe catalogs. I failed on setting that question up.
Yeah.
But most people are anyhow saying no. If you would be so kind, maybe to answer in the question pane if there is a reason to why you're not using the pressure pipes, either maybe because it doesn't work well enough for your project, or if it's because you lack the pipe catalogs. The problem with pressure pipes is that pressure pipes require you to have a finalized catalog, and each bend is actually a unique object. So it's a lot of job to set those up. But using ordinary gravity pipes, it's much more simple to do this, and that's why we're looking into that. The next poll, so I'm going to close that one there and move on. A question: how often do you need to do radiuses in profile? So now I did radius in plan. One of the limitations for gravity pipes is doing radius in profile. And civil gravity pipes does not support that. So yeah, we have some people doing that, and with large radiuses more than small radiuses. Okay, so I'm going to close that one down. Please answer directly if you want to add. I'm closing it now. And if you look at the features we've shown, do you see them as usable? Would you use this kind of feature in your projects? Do you need bends? Some yes, some no, some maybe. Yeah, at least it's the fewest number is on no. Okay, so then we're on the right track. Yep. I'm going to close that one down now. And the final question then, as I said, we are interested in having more people adding input to how this workflow could work. So if you would like to participate, so depending on how many yes we get, we can't guarantee to reach out to everyone, but we're interested in seeing if people are interested in contributing, and some are. Great. Okay. No more questions. I think that we're ready to.
Will you close the poll as well? I don't think we can
close the poll.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. Thanks for attending today, and see you next time, and maybe see some of you before next time, if you can do that. Okay. So I hope everyone saw my beautiful what's it called? Halsduk.
Yeah, your scarf there. Very
scarf.
good, very good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Bye.